Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream.
Hi, Dave.
Hello. How are you, Casey?
Still here. We're still here. It's going.
Survive till 25. We've nearly made it. We
have. Let's see what the slogan is next year.
Yeah, we were wrong.
I'm going to be optimistic and say we'll be right.
Yeah.
We have a good guest today. I think he might have some input on this too, because he's a fellow creative.
Oh, great.
He's a photographer and a storyteller, which I think is interesting because I think he's like a visual storyteller and he just yaps stuff. He also wrote a book, The Big Book of Bad Decisions. I think we can all relate to that.
I need to know about that. Yeah. Definitely.
All right, let's bring on Scott Nathan. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Casey.
Hello,
Thanks for
Scott.
being here.
Nice to meet you. Scott. So, we've got to start there. I mean, that's a great title. And you've got a podcast as well called the Big Bad Decisions.
Bad Decision podcast.
What happened with your life, Scott, that you had to do this?
I don't know. I've come to accept that after all of these years of just been constantly thrown into insanity, that I do believe in a higher power, and I believe that my life's purpose is to be a vessel for chaos.
And what is that? Is the chaos delivering entertainment, or what do you feel like the chaos is delivering from you?
Well, entertainment, laughs, but also wisdom, cautionary tales, allegories, parables, kind of like the Bible, only dirtier.
Oh, a dirty Bible. Oh, okay, excellent. But you're a photographer, right? This is what I heard in the introduction. So
it's one of the things I've done. I've been a working pro photographer for 25 years. Previous to that, I was an IT guy at Universal and at Disney. Before that, I was in the music business from university graduation for a handful of years. I was a publisher with Warner Brothers. I worked for a management company. I promoted over 1,000 concerts. I moved here in 1994, just before the Northridge earthquake, which turned out to be the greatest thing to ever happen to me.
You might be the only person to say that.
Wow.
How did that, for not to be punny, how did that break good ground for you?
So times were tough. Those were days where I was hitting the reset button, starting all over. And I didn't know that many people in LA. I knew a handful of kids that I went to college with at University of Colorado at Boulder. And I was couch surfing. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I had bupkis. So the earthquake happened, and my friend David's father just built this 11,000 square foot mansion on Mulholland Drive, and it got yellow tagged in the earthquake. And what that means is you either got a green tag, a yellow tag, or a red tag. Green tag meant no damage. Yellow tag meant inhabitable, but lots of mandatory repairs. Red tag meant you could not set foot inside of it. So I'm with my friend and his dad, and he's like, Scott, you find a place to live yet? And I go, no, Jerry, I haven't. He said, I'll tell you what, if you can handle the dust and the construction noise, you can stay in the house, just keep an eye on it, and just keep an eye on the workmen, make sure they don't steal the pool furniture. And I was so broke that I didn't even have gas money to get up and down the hill. So there was a period of time where I was living off the avocados and oranges on the trees, while my neighbors were the likes of Wayne Gretzky across the street, Shaquille O'Neal a few doors down, Paula Abdul and Emilio Estevez, Vanna White and George Santopietro. What's that guy's name? Isaac Tigret, the Planet Hollywood founder. And my nickname, it was an appropriate joke at the time. Now no one will. Well, now people will understand it again. So my nickname for the house was Hotel Beirut, because
it's so funny. It's cyclical. It's come back.
Back in vogue, yeah. So because it looked like it was bombed, 6 chimneys collapsed, the pool cracked and drained into the mountain, and I was living on this construction site in this stately mansion in Beverly Hills.
Wow. Wow, yeah.
That's an epic visual.
Lucky you.
Okay, so
Lucky
that
you.
gave you the time to save up and scrap to become all of your many professions. Wait, now I feel like we need to backtrack. So 10-year-old you was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be a music
impresario.
You thought that at 10 years old? You thought, I'm going to be... What made you think that at 10 years old? I didn't know there was such a thing when I was 10 years old.
I'll tell you why. I loved music more than anything. I was turned on to it from my friends' older siblings. And then, well, it wasn't 10, but it was when I was 12, my father took me to see Kiss, my favorite band, at the Chicago Stadium. And this was the height of spectacle. Kiss on the Alive 2 tour, 1977, fireworks, blood spitting, torches, hydraulic lifts. And I was just like, oh my God. And then the second show, I was very lucky. The second show my father took me to was Queen.
Oh,
off to a raring start. And my dad came up from kind of humble, working class Chicago parents. And he takes me to his Italian barber one day who's got like the hairy chest and the gold horn. And he says, I think my son's one of them funny boys. I think my son's one of them fruitcakes. And the barber's just like, oh yeah, why do you think that? And I'm sitting there with the cape on going, I'm sitting right here. I can hear you guys. And he goes, first my son has me take him to this show and the guy's wearing a bunch of makeup and high heels. What are they called? And I'm like, Kiss. He goes like, yeah, Kiss. And then he takes me to this other band where this guy's wearing like a leotard and he's got a mustache and a cane. What were they called? And I said, Queen, Dad. He goes, yeah, a bunch of fruitcakes, bunch of funny boys. But I knew, I was just like, these are my people. Rock and roll is my people. This is the life I want.
Wow. When I was 16 years old, I was lucky to be on. I was in the West End as an actor in London, and Queen were in the same rehearsal room, not in the same block, rehearsing for a Live Aid. And I think that changed them after that. Like after Live Aid, they just became stratospheric, didn't they? It was they stole the show.
Yeah, I always say I've been to thousands of concerts, more than most people. I love concerts so much. I will go to concerts of bands I don't even like because that's how much I love. I love the tribalism and the interconnectedness of the concert.
I'm with you.
I always say when people ask, "What's the best concert you've ever been to?" I say Queen. Want to know the second best concert I've ever been to? The second time I saw Queen.
Wow, you like Queen, don't you? Yeah.
Now I'm sad I never got to see them.
They were perfection.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Queen movie? Did it live up?
I liked it. I was deathly afraid. I had such anxiety that they would do a disservice to it, and I thought it was good enough. I didn't watch the Elton one because I just didn't want to press my luck.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. If you want to have some fun, I went to a gala last night of Cinevita down in in SoFi. They built a huge Belgian tent, and they had incredible singers there. And
really,
it's all kicking off. It's going to be there for a few months. I say go down there, and they're playing music from different eras, but with different takes. And of course, they were in LA, so they can choose the singers from America's Got Talent and go you. And
that's great. Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, put that down on your concert list. They do a Tarantino night, a Scorsese night, a John Hughes night. Last night it was and Love Actually, and last night it was everything. So it's all the music from all those movies. These are incredible singers.
Yeah, I drove all the way to Ventura 3 nights ago to see 3 metal cover bands.
Oh.
Wow. And it was, one of them is only kind of a cover band. So it was Zach Sabbath, which is Zach Wilde, who's Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player doing Black Sabbath covers. So, he does play with the man. But his wife is a friend. I've done her podcast, Barbara Ann Wilde, and Daniela Clark, who's married to Gilby Clark, who was in Guns N' Roses. So I just wanted to see them. And then I just thought it would be fun. But it was not easy to find a girl to agree to drive in rush hour to Ventura County to see an all-girls Iron Maiden cover band, a Led Zeppelin cover band where they were all geriatrics, and then Zach Sabbath. But it was fun.
So 10-year-old wanted to be this music impresario, and that kind of happened. Are you saying that kind of happened?
It did. I mean, to a degree, I did. As an internship, so I went to Colorado. So spitting distance from Boulder, about a half an hour away, is Red Rocks, which I will argue is the single best music venue in America, if not the world. Mm-hmm. And I think the Hollywood Bowl is the second best venue.
Oh, okay.
And it's exquisite. It's extraordinary. It's a natural amphitheater formed in the rocks of the Rocky Mountains. And I used to get an internship every summer there, and I would, with a tape gun, putting up playbills in exchange to be able to come to and work at the shows.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I would see, and I saw every show there for 2 or 3 summers.
Did you see the U2 one, which the album?
That was before before I was there. The Under a Blood Red Sky.
Oh yeah, wow.
But I saw 12 Grateful Dead shows. I saw everybody of that era.
But how do you go from being a music impresario to a 25-year career as a photographer?
Yeah.
Well, that was not my intention. So, I worked in Chicago I got a job at it was an unlikely place to work in music, but I thought I would give my hometown a chance. And I went to work for a management company, and they managed some artists that got signed but didn't go anywhere. And then I met this guy who was the bassist in Supertramp. Remember them?
Yeah.
And he had just gotten his own sub-publishing deal with Warner Chappell. So I went to work for him, and it was just the two of us, and we were trying to sign and develop songwriters and artists. And then that wasn't enough to really keep my lights on that job. I think it was $300 a week. And then I started promoting concerts on the side, and I used to run a venue that was quite famous here and in New York, which was also in Chicago and Aspen, called the China Club. And I was the music director for China Club, and I promoted a lot of concerts there. And then I'd kind of done everything that one could do in music in Chicago, and it was kind of the golden age for Chicago artists. So it was like around the time that Smashing Pumpkins and Urge Overkill and Material Issue and Liz Phair and everybody was getting signed out of Chicago. And I was tired of winter, so I moved to L.A., and I thought it would be very easy for me to get a job. I knew lots of people from the business, but I learned that LA is not the Midwest. No one was taking my calls. No one was returning my calls. And it was proving very, very difficult to get any kind of work. Even starting over as an assistant, I couldn't find a job. And, but eventually I got a job with Atlantic Records. And this was in the age of Napster. I think you're both old enough to remember that.
Yep.
And about a month after I started my job, maybe 3 weeks, Napster had destroyed the music business, and everybody, including me, got laid off. And it was over. And from that period, that ice age between that era, between Napster and Steve Jobs coming up with the 99-cent iTunes song sale, the music industry was over.
Could you explain what Napster is? Because maybe I'm being ignorant here.
Napster was the original illegal music pirating, peer-to-peer music pirating software. There was another one called LimeWire that was also popular, but anybody could download any song for free through piracy. And it was created by one of the Facebook founders, Sean Fanning or Sean Parker, one of those Seans from Facebook.
So that technology really just like killed the industry that quickly?
Wiped it out completely. That was the end. Until Steve Jobs had the final offer. He said it was not open to discussion. A friend of mine was a lawyer who went around to all the record labels and said, this isn't negotiable. This is Steve's vision. 99 cents a song, take it or leave it.
Wow.
And he told me about this one meeting. This lawyer friend of mine has since passed away, so I don't mind telling the story now. But he was meeting with the CEO of Hollywood Records, which is the Walt Disney Company's record company. Don't know if they're still around, but that's what it was called then. And he goes, you can tell Steve Jobs personally that I said he can go fuck himself. And my friend says, Steve's the largest shareholder of Disney, right? And he goes, no, he's not. Oh, wait, Pixar. Yeah, right. Yeah, don't tell him I said any of that. Yeah, his terms are acceptable.
Wow.
That's amazing how one person can like crush an industry, right? Like work for him, but now like you got to change your dream. Musicians can't earn a living anymore. Like such a zeitgeist.
Yeah, so then I had to figure out a way to eat. So the internet was brand new. And I was always an early adopter. I've always been a very tech savvy person. I took a lot of computer science in college and was, I owned computers back to the Radio Shack TRS-80 with 2K of memory and Ataris. And I had the first Apple II and the first Macintosh. I was always a computer guy. So I was just like, I'll bet you, I've been meeting people in the entertainment business. I'll bet you I can convince them that they need websites. And no one had ever done a website for a major motion picture before. And I knew this guy named Sidney Sheinberg. And Sid Sheinberg was the president and chief operating officer of MCA Universal Studios. And I end up at a Passover dinner table with him because my friend's sister was married to his son. And I said, Sid, and this is right around the time Schindler's List had just come out and they just won the Oscar for that, for Best Picture. And I said, Sid, how much do you pay for a commercial on a major network on a hit TV show? And he's like, a lot of money, like $60,000 for a 30 or 60 second spot. I can't remember which one it was. And I said, you need websites. And he's like, what are they? And I was like, think of it as an open 24 hours a day, unlimited exposure, unlimited traffic for a small fraction of your advertising budget. He goes, all right, let's try one. How much do you want? I said, I don't know, $100,000. He goes, done. Because in movie terms, that's not that much money. That's like a day's catering on a Michael Bay movie.
Wow.
So the first movie website we did was a movie with Kevin Spacey called K-Pax.
Oh, yeah.
We did that one, and then that hit, and then we just then we picked up Disney and Paramount and Sony, and we were like jamming and doing great. And I was outsourcing the job. Like my partner couldn't do them all. He was an advertising guy. And so we started outsourcing him and hiring kids, and it was a humming along business in those golden ages, and that's when they still paid. And everything had to be coded by hand. It was a lot more work to build websites than it is now. And then photography, I was always a photographer. I got my first dark room when I was very, very young, but my parents were very adamant you are never to pursue a career in the arts. That is for imbeciles, and they're not wrong. So I had these two friends that were kind of rich kids from L.A., and one of them was a famous photographer, and the other one was a famous businessman. And they owned one of the largest photo studios in L.A. And they said, we like your work. We've decided you're turning pro as a photographer. I said, you guys, I'm 38 years old. I'm not starting a new career in the arts. I'm finally making a living at something. And they said, nope, it's been decided. Pretend you have the same last name as us. You can use the trucks, the grip, the lighting, start shooting. And I said, well, okay. So I did a few tests. And in the meantime, I assisted that friend and kind of shepherded him into the new world of digital photography, which was, there were some consumer little toy cameras out there, but medium format, big digital was brand new. They were Gen 1. So I had a little bit of muscle being affiliated with this studio. So I called all the makers and I said, send me over samples to play with. And I chose one, and I was the first digital technician in photography in this town. So my boss told me, he's like, listen, you're going to have this job and I'm going to pay you well for a while. But one day when I feel like I can't teach you anything else, I'm going to fire you. And you have to promise you're not going to do this for other people, that you're going to start shooting. So I was about 8 months in, and I think the shoot was Christina Aguilera, if memory serves. And I think it was a Motorola cell phone campaign. And we finished the shoot, and he goes, thank you, hair. Thank you, makeup. Thanks, Christina. Scott, you're fired. And I was like, wait, what? And he goes, I told you this day was coming. Time to fly, little birdie.
Wow. Why? Why?
Because he just felt that he showed me all of his moves, and it was time to go make my own way.
And you did. And so, but he was saying you can go and do this for other people. I thought he said he couldn't do this for other people.
He wanted him to shoot.
Don't assist other people. Don't be a digital technician for other people. Don't be a photographer.
I see.
So I went and I sat on my couch for 3 weeks and smoked weed and was just trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I'm like, I only did like 3 tests. No one's going to hire me to do an ad campaign. And then I got a call from a woman who worked for his family's business, and she was the head of marketing for this major cosmetics company. And she said, do you think you can shoot beauty the way he did? I said, yeah, I know all of his moves. I can do all of that. Absolutely. And she said, okay, do you know who this brand called Too Faced Cosmetics is? I said, yeah, I've seen their stuff at Sephora and Ulta. Yeah, but they don't use photography. They use these cheesy stock, cheap looking illustrations. And she said, not anymore. I'm the new chief marketing officer. I've moved over there. and I want to grow this brand up. So I said, okay. She goes, come up with a creative brief. So I came up with a creative brief that was not the most interesting idea ever. It was two-faced, one good girl, one bad girl, one blonde girl, one brunette girl. It was basically Archie or James Bond or Gilligan's Island. It was just like yin and yang of women, like the good girl and the bad girl. And anyway, they liked the pitch. So they said, we've never done a photo shoot before. What's the next step? And I said, the next step is casting. And he said, okay, let us know how that works. I said, okay, so day one, I'm going to cast blondes. Day two, I'm going to see brunettes. So day one, I get a casting studio over at L.A. Models on Sunset Boulevard, and I see about 110 blondes. And the fourth girl to walk through the door was just this terrifying ice blonde South African, and I knew she was my girl. She was intimidating and scary and natural with liquid sapphire eyes and bee-stung lips and white natural blonde hair. And I'm like, she's my scary girl. And then the next day I saw about 100 brunettes, and none of them did it for me. I was just like, these are all so bland. I feel like I'm watching an old Navy commercial that's 6 hours long. And so I said to the CEO and his husband, I said, you guys, I need another casting day. They're like, you saw 100 girls. You can't find one model you like? And I was like, no, just give me one more day. It's another $1,000 for the casting studio. They gave me another casting day. I saw like the 40 stragglers that didn't make it to my first one. Didn't see anyone I like. And I called the guys in Orange County late at night. And I was like, guys, can we look at girls from New York? And the CEO was like, Scott, I'm losing my patience with you. You have to pick somebody from the tape or we're going to. And I said, I have an idea. And they said, what is it? I said, I got this friend. And they go, yeah, who is she? I said, she's a singer. They're like, oh, that's interesting. What record label is she signed to? I said, she doesn't have a record deal. And the CEO lost it. He was like, are you out of your mind? He goes, you're really going to put your balls on the chopping block for a nobody, unnamed singer, unsigned singer? And I said, absolutely. And he said, what's her name? I said, Katy Perry. He said, I'd never heard of her. I said, you will. And they said, we'll meet her. We'll take a meeting with her, but no promises. So I called Katy, who was like my running buddy at the time. And I met her. She was a Christian girl with floral dresses who was playing acoustic guitar at cafes. And I just believed in her. I heard her demos and she blew my mind. And so I call her and I'm like, and we always call each other by our last name. So I'm like, hey, Perry. And she's like, what's up, Nathan? I said, I have a photo shoot for you. And she's like, oh, great. Does it pay? I go, yeah. And I go, you need to go tomorrow. We're driving to Newport Beach. And she goes, I can't. I've been stalking this producer named Glenn Ballard for months. And he finally agreed to have a writing session with me. And Glenn Ballard, produced the Alanis Morissette debut record. And he's quite a talented guy and a good fit for Katy. And I said, you have to reschedule it. And she's like, absolutely not. And I said, Katy, how much money do you have right now? And she goes, none. I said, I have a photo shoot that pays $7,500 for the day. She goes, what do I have to do? I said, charm 2 gay guys in a room. She goes, that's my jam. I said, I know. And I picked her up and we drove down there and we sold it in the room. And it was both the smartest and dumbest thing I've ever done because it was very high risk. But then she blew up and they had the rights to those photos for 18 months.
Wow.
She got signed to Columbia and exploded. And then I never wanted to be a beauty photographer. I didn't want to be like my mentor. I wanted to be a music photographer. I wanted to be like Annie Leibovitz or Mark Seliger. But as the saying goes, you chop down one tree and everyone thinks you're a lumberjack. So I accidentally became a beauty guy. So people got wind of it. And then I got Urban Decay and Hard Candy and Sephora and Ulta and QVC and HSN and Schwarzkopf and all these. And I became the beauty guy, which was lucky.
And is that, are you passionate about that? I mean, it's interesting. You said I didn't want to be that, but I became that. How do you feel about that now?
It works for me because I think the most interesting part of photography to me isn't taking pictures, it's faces. So I think from a purity standpoint, I'm a pure portraitist. I think that's what I excel at, and extracting an emotion, a feeling. I met Richard Avedon once. And I was so starstruck by him. And I said, Mr. Avedon, he said, Dick. And I said, Dick, how did you work this magic? And he said, what, this career? And I said, yeah. He said, listen, Scott, I'm not very good at lighting. I said, yes, you are. And he said, I'm not very good at composition. I said, yes, you are. And he said, what I'm really good at is forming what feels like an old friendship that sometimes only lasts a 125th of a second. Do you think you're good at talking to people? I go, yeah, I do think I am. He goes, then shoot people. I'm not saying don't be a photographer, but if you're not one of those people who can really connect with all kinds of people, be a product photographer, be a car photographer, be a travel photographer, shoot animals for National Geographic. But if you think you're good with people, be a portraitist like me. And I never forgot that.
And is that how you? And so you consider yourself a portraitist? That's what you think?
Yeah.
And,
So
go on, Casey. Go.
I was just going to say, of all these many parts of your career that you've had, what is the one that like lights you up the most? What is the one that feels the most the dream?
Well, I would say the most fun I've ever had on a shoot was Joan Rivers. The couple times I shot her, which was amazing. And she's the closest thing I've ever met to what felt like a soulmate.
Wow.
From the moment I met her, like I'm very ADD, and photography is the one thing where you have to be OCD. So it's a lot of work for me to narrow my focus, and not one thing can be wrong when you're at the helm. You know, if one light's wrong, the whole thing's shit. If you direct the makeup artist wrong, the whole thing is shit. So I always get to my photo shoots an hour to an hour and a half early so I can just stare at a blank stage or a set and figure out how I'm going to light it, what I'm going to do before other people start talking to me. Because once people show up, everyone's going to start talking and I can't think straight. So I arrive about an hour early and I'm just sitting in a director's chair looking at a blank cyclorama, a white seamless stage, with all the house lights on, and the caterer is bringing in the coffee and the catering. And Joan Rivers walks in and she's like, "Where's Scott?" And I said, "I'm Scott." She goes, "You're always early. I'm always early. You want to have breakfast together?" And I said, "Yeah." So we start talking and she goes, "This is not a photo shoot, right?" So what do you mean it's not a photo shoot? I got a crew coming. We're in a photo studio. I'm putting sandbags on light stands. She goes, no. What this is me and Melissa have a reality show, and this takes place at a photo shoot. So we're going to yell at each other and scream at each other, and feel free to improv and do whatever you want. I mean, take all the pictures you want, but the reason you have this job is I hear you're Jewish and very funny. I said, "I'm funny. I'm not you funny." And she said, "Sweetheart, nobody is me funny." which is true. So we had and she was just like, and I got the mission pretty early on. The mission was to gross out Melissa, who is now one of my best friends, and to try to out offend each other. So I was like, she was like, "Scott, do your balls sag?" I said, "What?" She goes, "What do you have, shit in your ears? I asked you a question. Do your balls sag?" I said, "Yeah, a lot more than they did when I was 18. She goes, "My vagina sagged so much that when I got out of bed this morning at the Four Seasons, I stepped on it and it looked like one of those oversized rabbit slippers." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm dying right now." And I literally was doubled over and had to hand someone my camera. And then I was just like, let me see if I can gross Melissa out. So I was like, "Joni, what are you doing after the shoot?" She's like, "I'm not doing anything." I go, "Let's go back to your room, order a little room service, take a bath together, have a little slumber party." And Melissa was like, "You guys are disgusting. Just shut up, both of you." She's like, "Scott, I'm too old for you." I'm like, "I don't think so. I think you're the one. I think you're my soulmate." And she's like, "You're out of your effing mind." And we were all really interconnected. And then she invited me back and I did another shoot at her house. And Casey, you probably know Melissa and I are now dear friends, and she moderated my book signing event at Book Soup, and I've been on her show and she's been on my show, and I adore her.
I mean, I have to imagine that only makes for better photos too, right? Because if you're trying to like build a connection quickly after all those years, the pictures you get when you know someone like deeply and intimately versus like meeting them for 5 minutes has to be pretty drastic.
Yeah, but sometimes, like, I'm kind of like to speak in English parlance, I'm kind of like Marmite. You know, I'm not for everyone. You either love it or you hate it, or licorice.
I've never met an American who likes Marmite.
You
just did.
Are you the guy?
I like Marmite, but I've got a lot of you redcoats as friends.
Yeah, well, I love Marmite, and I've tried it on so many Americans, and they all go, "No, I'll try it," and they all go, "Oh God!" And I'm going, "Oh,
you can't use too much of it. Like people think that you're supposed to spread it on like butter. No, it's like hot sauce.
I love Marmite. I mean, I have to have it shipped over when friends come over. I always say, just bring me some Marmite, and then I have American friends go, "Oh, I got to try it. I've heard so much about it," and then they just
can get Marmite at like Bristol Farms.
I know, but then you have to pay about $55 for something that's like 27 pence in England.
Fair enough.
It's just economics. That's all.
Anyway, but yeah, there have been shoots like in my assisting days. I assisted on a shoot with Val Kilmer and Lisa Kudrow.
Oh wow!
And the photographer knows I'm a wise ass. He's like, don't screw around with Val Kilmer. He's a very serious guy, and he's known to walk, so don't say anything that's going to piss him off. And I was like, okay, I'll be fine. So Val's a gem. We're all getting along great, and we're taking great pictures and having a really great time. And now I feel comfortable. So now we're at the lunch break, and we're all sitting around a big round table. And I said, you know, Val, everyone said to be afraid of you. And he goes, did they? And I said, yeah, everyone said that you're like super scary and mean and that you storm off set. And he goes, Scott, you strike me as the kind of guy who doesn't suffer fools gladly. And I said, no, I definitely am not. He said, you know where I got that reputation? Because when I'm at work, I work. And when I'm not working, I like to go out and have a good time and have the occasional drink. And after I did Batman, they wanted me to come back and be another Batman. They demanded I sign a contract that I would not have a sip of alcohol during the entire production of this very long movie. And I said, you know what, you guys, I don't need another babysitter. I don't need a babysitter. Go find another Batman. And he told them to F off. And I go, interesting. So we ended up having the best time. And then Lisa Kudrow ended up being not very nice at all. Ooh. She was just like barely as nice as she needed to be. Val was a prince. Val invited us to come over to his hotel and do art afterward, and he was awesome. And then cut to a few years later, a couple girlfriends of mine asked me if I want to go see Val Kilmer's one-man show at Hollywood Forever Cemetery called Citizen Twain, where he does a one-man show as Mark Twain.
Right.
It was fantastic. And I shot with him 3 or 4 years earlier as an assistant. He's not going to remember me. And I'm not the kind of guy who goes up to people going, hey, we worked together this one time. And the girls are like, come say hi with us. You know him. And I'm like, you guys, I'll be sitting in the corner drinking the cheap free white wine. And you guys go get your picture with him and we'll leave when you're ready. So I'm sitting there in the corner and I hear, hey, Scott, in a man's voice. And I look up, it's Val Kilmer. And he's like, well, you're not going to say hello? And I was like, yeah, you're working though. And he goes, come over here. So we're chatting. And I said, and he had talked about this ranch that he had in the Pecos in New Mexico. And I said, do you still have that ranch? And he said, I sold some acres, but I still have most of it. And I said, do you have any Rocky Mountain elk on that property? And he goes, yes, I do. And he goes, you should come. And I said, I would love to come. And then I gave him my phone number and he never called me. And then he said, who did we work with again on? And I said, Lisa Kudrow. He goes, oh my God, I love Lisa. Do you have her phone number? I said, no, why would I have her phone number? He goes, I would love to get in touch with her. I said, well, you're Val Kilmer. Can't you just ask your agent or publicist to call her agent or publicist and get you guys together? He goes, you'd think that would work, but that's not really a thing. And I'm like, I don't know. It seems like it would be a thing.
Seems like it would be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So cut to the next day, the very next day, I'm at the Beverly Hills Hotel in the Crystal Ballroom for a breast cancer charity event. And I'm sitting at table number 1. And who am I elbow to elbow with? Lisa Kudrow. So I said, hey, Lisa, I don't know if you remember me. We worked together on that shoot with Val Kilmer. And she goes, no. And I said, oh, okay. Anyway, I ran into him last night. I went to his show and he asked if I knew how to get in touch with you. And he goes, how would you know how to get in touch with me? And I go, that's what I said. And she goes, he DM'd me on Twitter last night. And I go, oh, okay, yeah, I suggested that. So it just goes to show you the person that, that's supposed to be the bad guy is sometimes the good guy. And sometimes you think Phoebe is going to be Phoebe and she ain't Phoebe.
Well, there's an excellent documentary about Val Kilmer, isn't there? About what an artist he was.
I haven't seen it, but I hear it's fantastic.
It's fantastic because I think I changed my opinion of him because I'd heard the thing, oh, he's difficult and he's just a pretty boy. And then watching that, you go, no, actually, he's a real artist. And he's really struggled with things in his life. And I just thought, give him a break. I mean, the media tells us what people are like, doesn't it, all the time? And then you meet people and you go, oh, they're nothing like that.
Yeah, I thought he was a big-hearted, sweet guy. He also gave me his suit. I kept complimenting on how much I loved this brown velvet Jill Sanders suit. And since it was a suit, it was tailored for him. But he and I were about the same size. He's like, do you want the suit? I'm like, it's your suit, Val. He's like, you know how many suits I have that I don't wear? Take the suit.
Wow.
So that's a good dude.
Well, that's a good story, isn't it? So you're going around not only just surviving the dream, but wearing Val Kilmer's suit. If you could just have his money as well.
His suit for 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah, that'll do. It was made for him. Right.
So how does it, okay, so you were 38 when you started the photographer dream, but I feel like, music impresario and then kind of being like a rock star of a photographer seem like they live in the same neighborhood. So like, how would you say the reality compares to what the dream once was?
Well,
if 12-year-old you was with you right now, what would he think of how life turned out?
It's different because like I'm a capable but far from professional guitar player. So I was never on the artist side. I was on the business side of it and around artists, and I thought I had pretty good taste. But I was the suit. Whereas when I became a photographer, I was the artist on the selling side of the business, which in most ways is worse. But I think at the end of the day, if you had to distill it down to a nucleus, I would say it's I'm just a creative. Whether I'm telling stories like now, or writing books, or taking pictures, or even working with other artists, it's just creativity. Yeah. Like I was talking to my cover quote artist, Zooey Deschanel, and they were telling her at the beginning of when her rise to stardom as an actress came, they said to her, you got to decide, are you a singer or are you an actress? And she goes, in the days of the MGM musical, nobody asked anyone that. Everyone could sing, everyone could dance, and everyone could act. And I think it's bullshit that you would ask me to decide. And my decision is I'm not deciding. And it's worked out just fine for her.
She's done okay. Yeah. I mean, I tell you, the show I saw last night, I thought the talent on display is like they could sing, they could act, they could dance. It is incredible.
I think too, a lot of people, when you have a dream, right, it doesn't necessarily fit in a tiny box. And the more it can like crisscross and dance in other areas, like the more it gets to fully breathe. Yeah.
And I don't get, my lighting sponsor that's lighting me right now said, what is this? What is with this writing thing of yours? And I was just like, it's just something I do. He goes, you are a portraitist. I said, no, it's not all I am. I'm a creative. And he goes, no, you are a pure photographer. I've worked with so many photographers. That's what you are. I said, sorry, Peter, I'm not. I get equal satisfaction from all creative pursuits where I can be appreciated and occasionally paid for. I'm filled with joy. If I can help people sell consumer products, fine. If I can make someone feel good about themselves by taking a really good picture of them, fine. Maybe my bar is low, but making people happy and delivering a good product, being creative is all I need.
Yeah. It feels good. So wait, are your photos in your book also, or is it stories like you've been sharing with us?
No, and a lot of people really were, wanted me to do this, but the book is just prose. It's just 56 short autobiographical short stories from my life. And now I might be moving. I think I'm moving to a major publisher. I have a big meeting on Monday with the CEO of a major publisher. So we'll see if we can come up with a plan that works for both of us.
I mean, I hate to say it, but you've actually made some pretty good decisions. It sounds
That's his next book, The Book of Good Decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know what the bad decisions are, because everything I've heard so far, I've gone, actually, this gentleman's done okay. Yeah.
Well, everything looks better in 2 dimensions, doesn't it?
Well, that's true. Yeah. I was giving a lecture the other day and they read out my resume and I thought, I want to be that guy. Anyway, we are come to the end of this podcast. This has been very, very entertaining. But now we have the questions that we ask everybody, every guest. There's no wrong answers. Well, a couple of wrong answers, but I'll kick us off. What would you do if you won the lottery? The big one.
Change my phone number.
We've not gotten that answer yet.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I would go as long as I could, telling no one.
Right. Okay.
I would never, ever give up this apartment. I would have other places to live. But it's a tricky... I've learned a lot about money and the trappings that come with it. And I'm not going to make this answer too long, but my last girlfriend, who Casey may have met, was an actual billionaire with an aircraft. And, we lived in the Hotel Bel Air and 4 other hotel rooms for a couple of years. And I've seen all the trappings of excess. And one thing I've learned about money is it can turn on you. And I think the amount is different for all people. But I think if you go over the crest of the wave where nothing has meaning or value anymore, like it was with her, one day, just for fun, I decided to count Chanel handbags, and I counted 122.
Wow!
In our room.
Wow!
And I said, you see, this doesn't work anymore. You can keep chasing it, but you're still miserable. And I worked for Nicolas Cage for 4 years. Money was not good to him. He and I had a long talk about it, and he said something interesting to me after he learned his lesson with the bankruptcy and the excessive spending. And he goes, the more stuff you own, the more stuff owns you. So it takes a real wisdom and maturity to handle money and realize what it can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Right. Good answer, Casey.
All right. I ask the really heady questions. So my question is, what is your favorite or go-to snack?
I have more of a salt tooth than a sweet tooth. My new current obsession is Russian sunflower seeds.
Wait, what makes them different?
They are completely different. Like you think you've had a sunflower seed. They have unbelievable flavor to them. They're more work and they're smaller and they're solid black. But I discovered it. I was in Miami a couple months ago on my friend's boat. We took it from New York to Miami, and he had these, and he's Ukrainian. So he grew up on these. And then his family came over once we got to Miami, and they started eating them. And I said, when we were college roommates, he always ate sunflower seeds, but I didn't realize I thought it was just a him thing. And they were like, no, all Ukrainians and all Russians eat these. And I'm like, let me try a couple. And I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. So now all the Russian supermarkets in West Hollywood, they all know me. They're like, Amerikansky, you're here for more seeds? And I'm like, yes. And I'm just like constantly eating these Russian sunflower seeds.
That's funny. I'm deathly allergic to sunflower. So when you're done knowing me, you can sneak some in my food.
Okay.
Wow. And what's your favorite animal and why?
My favorite animal is the giraffe. You can't look at a giraffe and say you don't believe in something bigger than us. Because that doesn't just happen in a vacuum. And I got to interact with them. I went to a friend of mine has a game reserve in Limpopo, South Africa, which is the northernmost province of South Africa on the border of like Botswana and Zimbabwe. And we're in the car driving there, and I'm like, do you have giraffes? He's like, oh, I have a massive family of giraffes. You're going to love them. And every morning I would make a coffee, take a walk with my shotgun looking for guinea fowl, and drinking my coffee, and they move. They're so huge and they move so silently that I wouldn't know. I was like, where are the giraffes? And I would look up and there'd be 3 of them looking down on me.
Wow.
And I eventually, one day I was walking, and I found an old, nearly petrified giraffe skull.
Wow.
And it must have weighed 75 pounds. I mean, I was barely able to lug it to the truck to get it back. And I really wanted to take it back to LA, but they were like, nah, we want it for our shelf here on the ranch. But what I didn't know is I always thought that the horns were like cartilage, were soft tissue for some reason, but they're not. They're bone.
Oh.
And they have the same number of vertebrae in their neck as we do, which I thought was fascinating.
That is fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
They are adorable. I've seen them in person. I've not had them looking over my head, but
and they have those long eyelashes, and they're so curious and so tame.
Yeah.
And I love cats too. As you know, I had that English cat. I had a Devonshire Rex that was my sidekick. He made it to almost 19 years, and we traveled the whole world together.
You took your cat around with you?
Isn't that envious? He had a travel cat.
Wow.
My cat my cat been to Paris 14 times.
Good Lord.
Yeah, we walked into Georges Cinq one day because I got him as a gift. Story for another time, but I got him as a gift from Marilyn Manson and Dita Von Teese. So I got him under my arm, and we walk into the Georges Cinq, Four Seasons, and the doorman goes, Monsieur Herman? I said, how do you know my cat's name? They're like, everyone in Paris knows Herman. They're like, does he still drink? He likes the whole milk? I was like, yes. She's like, I bring him one right away. And we're sitting in the bar, and they bring a dish with lions on it, with whole milk on it, and put it down on the floor next to him.
I love
it. That's nice.
He's living the life. All right, Scott, our final question. You've shared a lot today. If we really knew you, what would we know about you?
That despite all my filthy stories, I am still the same. I live in service to my fellow man, Midwesterner. Do what I say. Yeah, I do what I say. I say what I mean. My character is unwavering.
That's solid. All right. This has been fascinating. Also, you clearly have like the best pool of friends of anyone. I mean, I love my friends, but I don't think they're like, okay, your career starts now. And now your second career starts now.
Well, yeah, the little shoves are nice, but like anything else, it's still a constant grind.
Surviving the dream. You mean we're all just doing it?
Yeah.
Surviving the grind. There you go.
The life of an artist. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior, and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.